we are live.
Hello, hello.
Okay, we're back for the fifth round, so that's fun. It feels a little unreal that we actually made it to part five so soon. Actually, it feels like we just started this yesterday,
Yeah, yeah, it does feel like that, but
right?
um, I don't know. It's like when we first started, I didn't like even notice how the time flight away. So, and I'm still like that with each new stream that we make, we do. Woo!
Woo! Hi.
Hey,
No. How are you? Did you sleep well?
I slept for like 4 hours.
Just
I
for? Oh, come on.
just now woke up. I just now woke up. I've got like my handler over here. My son is like, "Are you awake?" I'm like, "Maybe." We'll find out. It literally rolled
uh,
out. I gotta get on the stream.
uh,
Drink my special magic drink, which is like the cheapest version,
Pepsi?
not
No,
real
it's
dark.
not Pepsi. Yeah. Unreal Dr. Pepper. Yeah. It's like special Dr. Pepper. Yeah.
okay. I moved my fan out of the way because it's starting to get hot. The heat is rolling in slowly this year. It usually would have
Mm,
settled already, but it's barely getting hot. And the last 2 days, you really feel it. It is a desert out here.
yeah. Yeah. I have like a really old fan which I glued the um, the fan itself. I glued it like a couple of times because it broke. So so I'm dreading this summer. For now, it's still like the weather is still chill, like coolish. But when it gets hot here, it will be really hot. Not that as hot as you get it in Texas, and yeah, but still, we
I
like
think
the
you're muted.
cold here more.
Snow, I think you're muted.
Yeah. I think she's
Find out.
muted.
There
Yeah.
you
No,
go.
am I? Oh, you muted me. Oh, that's so sad. Look at
Did
What?
I mute you?
just put her on mute. Just put her on mute.
Hmm.
She won't. She'll sound fine. No, I think I'm okay on my end. I can see the little doohickeys down there.
Yeah, we could hear
Part-
you.
Thank
We
you.
can
You're
hear
so
you
sweet.
coming through loud and clear.
Yay. So, how's your week? You already know how mine is. It's all filled with tornadoes and hail and thunder and lightning. How is your week going? How you been doing, James?
Been doing all right, staying busy. A lot of work to keep up with. But besides that, trying to keep up with the writing, trying to keep up with the projects. And yeah, it sounds like you got crazy weather down that way. We just got a bit of heat and we had wind this way, which is probably like
Oh,
you
did
guys
you?
get insane stuff. If you guys get insane stuff, we get like a little bit of wind. That's what
Oh,
ends
do
up
you?
happening. Yeah, so it's been cool lately, but the heat's been rolling in. So there we are.
Dude, for real. Sorry. That's hard when you have to like go through all that all the time. Did you ever have crazy weather out where you are, Black Knight?
Yeah, we usually do not, but sometimes we get like really heavy hail, egg size hail, torrential
What?
downpours,
Oh my gosh.
and
That's a lot.
heat
Sounds
waves. Yeah, heat waves, which we usually get them after like really cold winters, and
Yeah.
we have some cold winters. We
Oh yeah.
sometimes we have like a really cold winters, and a lot of snowfall, especially the mountains.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, um, I do hope we don't get like volcano level weather, because the quote unquote mountain nearby is actually a dormant volcano.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
So you
And
have
it
fun stuff there. You have cool things where you live.
could explode one day. We won't even,
don't do that.
yeah, we won't even like realize what's happening, because like the city is so close to the mountain.
Oh my gosh.
We'll probably just like have like seconds before the shockwave hits us.
Oh no.
But the chance of that happening is like 0.2 something percent.
Oh, that's not terrible. I hope y'all excuse me. Actually, right now I'm actually I'm answering weather calls too. So I'm actually, if you see me typing, that's just what I'm doing. So it's just me making sure my
Really?
people are live. So I'm sorry.
Ooh,
I
nice.
want to make sure people are okay. So you'll see me look
Yeah.
down. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to ignore anybody, because I love you all.
The weather's wild out there right now, then, huh?
Yes, no, it's okay right now. Right now we're actually in between, and we have several hours before another round of storms came in. But this morning they came in, and we didn't get the hail and the wind as much. It started rolling towards us, and then the storm immediately broke to the west or to the east, and so it rolled that way. But I had to stay up and watch the whole thing, so it was a lot of fun. I did. Hi, Wrangler. Hi. I can see your icon. I know it's you. I love you. I tried to get on there yesterday, and I was going to go up and see Wrangler yesterday, and oh my gosh, it just started hammering us with rain and stuff, and I was like, we're just surrounded all the time. It's like I can't get away.
That's too crazy. Yeah, it barely rains any down this way.
Really? Yeah, but when you rain, you get a big rain, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much that's how it goes. You get big rain or almost nothing at all. Every now and then you'll see a storm roll through, but they're small. You can literally see them pass by. It's kind of funny.
Wow, that's kind of cool though. That's kind of neat to see something go by like that. I love having a big open sky, because you can see the storms for miles, and I love being in the woods and things like that. But I would say, having lived in both, and I've been in a pine wood forest that you couldn't see except like from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, you'd see the sun, and then it goes down behind the trees, and you're like, oh, I can't see anything. There's like a little hole up here. And I love the woods, but I like being able to see the sky. I like being able to see the lightning and the thunder and everything like that. It's beautiful. And even though it's scary, it's still beautiful. I guess it's kind of like life. It's kind of like our subject today. What is our subject today?
Today we are going to be exploring religion. The various world religions, how they may impact our writing, things of that stuff. I expect it to be actually quite an interesting conversation, because last week it was hard for me to talk about certain things because it kind of breached into religion, and I was like, well, is this like a folklore? Is this a religion thing? All mixing up together. So it's going to be an exciting
continuation, from our last.
Yeah, because it really is, when you think about it. Folklore is belief, like we talked about. It's belief from the bottom up, and religion is belief from, a lot of times it's the beliefs of people, but it's organized and is cataloged by knowledgeable people, by priests or shamans or someone else. And so they sort of meet in the middle, and the human being that receives both of them is this little capsule of belief, and some of it will be folklore and some of it will be organized religion, but the whole of it is the spirituality of the person. So they really do go together hand in hand. The folklore and the organized religion all meet together in one person, and what we have is culture and belief, and our belief systems that create our own ideas of what is good and what is evil. And it's almost impossible to write a book without some idea of what the author believes is good or evil. And it might be that the author believes that religion is evil, or the author might believe that organized governments is evil. But they still have to write about it. They still have to believe something is good and something is evil. And so anything sort of comes back to that eventual idea of, where did you get your belief? How did it show up for you? What did you learn as a child? And so I think it's really cool and interesting to look at these things from a literary perspective as well.
Yeah, and it's also something that is like very developmental, but if you actually look into a lot of separate literatures, they don't actually focus too much on a person's religion being developed over time, things that they may be exposed to here or there, and then as they get older, maybe they take it more seriously or even less seriously. Usually, we focus more on the more like carnal things about their immediate relationships with people and less about their ideologies.
Yeah.
You know, where more characters seem to be kind of forged by events, and they really don't take the time to like you don't see like the philosophy hit them at the end and things of that nature. Which is another great thing about kind of religion in writing, is it pulls out of that philosophy, which can help you set your themes or even question certain boundaries and things of that nature. And it's very multifaceted because you can use it, like I said, very personally for a character and their developmental status. And I think a great character in more than just literature, but let's bring cinnamon into it, is Luke Skywalker. He found out what it meant to be a Jedi, and that in itself was almost they said, the Force, it's the religion, and he ended up becoming the high priest of a portion of that religion. And I think that's a good one. You're working off of like the good and the bad. That's exactly what that is, the Force separated into these two separate categories. And they're very much both a almost like invisible power as well as a downright philosophy that they live their lives by. And I think that's a big thing behind religion, is the philosophy and how that can actually be a major influence on a character. Like I said, Star Wars, my favorite moment when Luke Skywalker won't kill Darth Vader on episode 6 and he drops the lightsaber, because that's not what a Jedi does. That's his philosophy. That's who he's become.
Yeah, and I would say when I saw it in the theater when it was released, I actually saw it with my father. I've talked about that before. That moment when I went to and it's 1977, and literature and cinema had become sort of dark. Everything was the anti-hero. There wasn't any real good or bad. It was just love where you are right now, and or do whatever you want. The anti-hero was in full swing, and they're very interesting. There's a lot of great characters that come out of that era. But for a lot of us, and especially if you're a younger person, we wanted something that was just, we were missing something. We were missing heroism. We were missing adventure, that sense of right and wrong, that sense of there's a reason for what we're doing. And so I'm 14 years old, and I'm watching it with my father. And that moment when when they were talking about the Force, and I was a person that was religious. I was not religious by the way I was raised. Actually, my father and mother were scientists. And they did have a deep belief, but they weren't really ones to go into what we call an organized religion. But I had a moment of my own that brought me into a place of belief, a place of actual interaction with the divine. And so as a 14-year-old girl, for me to see on the screen somebody who talks about having this interaction with the divine, the force of life, the force of everything. And when he puts down, it says, use the Force, Luke. And he puts down the screen and he starts being himself, the warrior he's supposed to be, without all the extraneous things. And instead, he's in connection with this divine force. It was electric. It was just an amazing moment for me as a person who felt like I had that interaction, to see it represented on screen. And it made me into a lifelong fan of the franchise. Even so much so, it took a long time to get me away from it at the end, because I was like, oh, I'm really hoping they'll bring it out. And so it did. That moment, it is described as an ancient religion, and it's a faith. And so when you see it that way and you remember it that way, it really does make a lot more sense in the storyline. And I think it was an incredibly developmental point in my awareness of literature and cinema as the ability to inspire and transform. And I loved that moment. And I kind of wanted to capture that in Watcher of the Damned as well. The hero's journey, everybody's heard it talked about over and over again, but it really is about discovering yourself as a man. And part of that discovery is who we are as spiritual beings.
Indeed. It was, I watched it much later, because we did have cinemas, but you couldn't quite watch Western movies. And the movie came, I think it was right after the fall of the regime, soon after Kind of like they kind of opened the floodgates,
Oh,
and
wow.
they also no longer had like agents from the secret police look over and write the names of people who visit church. So it I mean, yes, we went to church, but it wasn't like you always watched like behind your back. Um, because back in the day, my grandma told me stories that they would have these like random arrests of churchgoers because they've had like people infiltrated there, and they would listen. They would listen, and even if I think there was like a case when people prayed for world peace, and the entire church was almost the entire church was arrested. The all people
Wow.
who were there,
Oh, that's bad.
because even though the communists preached that oh yes, we are for world peace, we are so peaceful. Obviously, we know what they do. I know what they did. But in my case, I did like that aspect of the force, like the life, the uh, connection of pretty much everything living. And maybe this is one of the most important aspects of the Jedi, that they would not kill indiscriminately, because they see, even in someone like Darth Vader,
Yeah.
who killed innocents and did other crimes, they see that there is like still some good in him left. And if you remember it, in the last movie of the original trilogy, Luke said that he spoke to him and told him that I can see like there is still some good in you. You will not take me to the emperor. And yes, he did take him to the emperor, but in the end, you know how it ended.
Well, and
Ah,
that important part about Luke's interaction with his father too is not that he doesn't just throw down his arms and say do whatever you want. He would. I think that if somebody innocent had been in that room and Darth was trying to kill them, he would have stopped Darth Vader. But Darth wasn't trying to kill somebody else and trying to get. It's not. It's not pacifism for the sake of pacifism. He refuses to kill his father in a one-on-one interaction that's supposed to cause him hate. And literally, this was a case of where it's Luke against father, love versus hate. And he refuses to become hate. He refuses to be hate. And he says, I will not kill you just for no reason. He's just ordered to do this. He's ordered to feel that hate flowing through you, do this thing. And people mistake pacifism for weakness. The idea that you're supposed to love peace and love life means you are willing to defend it, even at risk to your own life, in order to save others. And it's that the ultimate pacifism is to love so much that you're willing to lay your own life down to save it and to stop hate. So I think that was such an important distinction, that they didn't put Luke up against, well, I'm just going to throw my weapon down and, everybody put your stuff down because that's peace. That's not peace. That's just surrender. Instead, Luke actually finds peace. He fights him all the way to the top. He shoots his weapons. He goes in. He tries to take over those bases. He ends up where he's supposed to be. He gets where he's supposed to be, and then he stops the hate with love. And that is such an important distinction, that the warrior who loves peace is willing to fight for that peace. He's willing to lay down his life for it. And he knows what peace is because he has it inside. It's not just an outer religion. And I think what you said was so important, Black Knight. A lot of people, that this trope nowadays that we have, that organized religion is somehow evil. A lot of times what they use this is, the religion is evil, the priest is evil. We've lived in a world where people are actually killed for their beliefs. They're killed for what they believe. They're actually put into an oppressed state because they have a belief, And people have refused to admit that communism is a religion. It is based on worship of the state. The state is the god. And so it in itself is a religion. So this trope,
it's called statism.
yes, it's statism. It is. It's actually worship of a government. And that was the reason that they didn't want anybody praying for peace or anything else. The only person you're supposed to go to for anything is the government. It's your God at that point. And so this trope that somehow religion is always the evil entity, that it must be this evil thing, is untrue. And in fact, we explore that in Watcher of the Damned, where there is a state religion. It is the state-run version of their own ideas of what people should believe, and they have created a religion that's based around state beliefs. And then there's actually a true religion that is based on the state of the heart and based on a human being's interaction with the divine. And we have a balance between the two things of the state that created a religion and a religion that created humanity and helped humans to live. And so I wanted that dichotomy in there because I wanted to break that trope of religion as somehow always the bad guy. And it seems to be that way now, that we have this trope that it's always a religious person, it's always a religion that is somehow the oppressor. And maybe if you're talking about communism,
Yeah, it's in my own experience, I've seen like there were like priests who actually took bribes from the Communist Party, and they kind of betrayed other churchgoers if they were openly the anti-government. But to continue from that point that you made about the religion and the tropes that they're constantly pushing, well, of course you will have like black sheep, and yeah, you can find them everywhere. The problem with that trope, that like religion is super bad, let's say Christianity is super bad, like it's turbo bad, it's like mega hyper giga ultra bad, and all priests are like great, they do bad stuff, blah blah blah. Well, no. If we actually would look to different religions, you will find that in many of them there are like sensible things, good things, and there are things that are culturally different, except, let's say, some cults that promote sacrifice of humans, which is like we can all agree probably that this is not enlightened. it's not okay. And since you mentioned that in your books there is this state religion, I kind of touch on that in like somewhat later, like not later on, like mid series in the 5th book. There is this kingdom approved religion on one of the planets, which it's quite like it's deliberately created and designed to keep the people in perpetual servitude, like the peons and the serfs, and they are it's about Lutoria, the secrets of Lutoria, and then they basically the priesthood and the elites, they are doing whatever they want. And I kind of used communism for inspiration in this case, because I've actually saw how they acted, and had like friends who experienced I rather not say it on YouTube, but yeah, it's religion. You can't say that like literally every single religion is like every single organized religion is super bad. And in, for example, in Star Shelter, you have two big galaxy spanning religions, you could say. One is the universalism. It's called universalism, which they believe that the universe itself is God, and it's somewhat like there are parallels with the Force, you could say, but it's not exactly like that. It's like yeah, the universe is God, and the universalists they attempt to nurture sentient life, because this is like all sentient life forms are actually like bits of the universe's spirit, and this is how the universe is trying to bring happiness out of nothingness, and
So sweet.
understand why there is this and that. So for these people who follow this religion, they are highly intolerant of acts of genocide, and they go on like let's say not crusades, but like organized wars against others who can like who do genocidal acts, because this is like mass extermination of life, and life is sacred for them. And then you have like the precursor worshippers who are they are not conflicting religions. They are not they never fought, because they coexist together. It's not like they're not diametrically opposed. It's just like the universalists, they go for the worship of pretty much all living beings, all sentient living beings, and living beings in general. And the precursors are they venerate like these saints, because to them they're saints. They're not gods, they're saints. It's like a super ancient race who created a lot of the current races through the process called uplift. So they granted near sentient species like primates or whatever, like they granted them full sentience, and for that they're venerated, because they have advanced the universe's self. They have multiplied sentient life. They have created more happiness. They have uplifted millions of species into sentience. So yeah, and I don't want to go into like super details, because this is it's going
No,
to be
that's part of the world building. This we get wrapped around the axles of our worlds because we love them so much. We want to talk about it. It's who we are as authors. So it's perfectly understandable, and it's an interesting thing what you said about sacredness of life. And I think this is I think it's one of the crux, the difference between so many of the indie authors who come out and there's a hopeful tone. There's a belief that life will get better, that life is beautiful somehow. And then a lot of the stuff that we've seen come out recently is just that humanity is a waste of time, and that nobody should be here anyway. And why are you even alive? And why do you?
Yeah, the black pillars.
Yes,
The doom, like doom.
Well, and it's understandable.
No.
It's understandable that people feel overwhelmed and that they sometimes feel that darkness about it. But to say that there is no reason for anybody to be alive, that there's no reason for anybody to struggle or to strive, that humanity shouldn't even be here at all, that with everything that's happened. And I understand that feeling. I've been in a place where I've had people that were religious that tried to abuse me as well. It's not religion. It's not the belief that was bad. It's the fact that they didn't believe it enough, that they became corrupted and tainted by evil itself. It is not Christianity that betrayed me. It is the evil that takes it over that betrayed me. And that's the problem that we have. We failed to separate. We fail to separate divinity from religion. And any organized system of belief is a religion. Any religion without its own spirituality becomes government. It can become oppression, because it's a method of ruling people when it doesn't have a heart of spirituality, when it doesn't have a seed of the divine in it, of good versus evil. It just becomes a way to control people. And so it's very much useful as a device in literature to say, here's a way of a system of belief that can overwhelm people also, that can take over their thoughts or can try to stop them from being fully themselves. But it's not to constantly go back and say, oh, any belief in the divine is somehow stupid or wrong. It's a trope that's been overused. I think it's been pushed so long that it's become cliche. The idea that life is just that simple thought that life is sacred. You wouldn't have ever thought that you would have heard somebody say, oh, it's okay to sacrifice a human. But we're hearing people say this now. It's all right if they, it's because humanity's a plague on the earth or something, I guess. I'm
yes, we will save the planet when we kill all the humanity. Yeah, sure.
No, I really don't want to do that. So I think that we have to write about that position of hope at some level.
I think if we actually if we actually allowed this to happen, something of the universe's balance will be broken until it's restored by another form of life, another species. That's no. It wouldn't be. It's not going to be exactly the same what happened to the dinosaurs.
Well,
they didn't have the dinosaurs. They weren't I mean, it's sad that they disappeared, but I mean, a rock fell from the sky and killed them. They weren't genocided by their own kind.
That's true.
And there are groups, by the way. There are groups, quote unquote, environmentalist groups, for example, a cult of fools who are wearing red gowns and hooded cloaks and shit. They're called Extinction Rebellion, and they actually, they are quite insane.
Well, actually, that is a state-funded religion, and if you go in, and I've actually done investigations on it before, because in another life, I actually am a private investigator, or I've run a private investigative agency, and I have private investigators working for me. And one of the things we do is we follow money in certain things. Usually it's with corporations and stuff. You would be shocked to see what corporations pay for. And one of the things that corporations pay for is for Extinction Rebellion. And you can look it up and you can see it yourself. Go ahead. But it is a state-funded religion. It actually is. They even put on those robes. They try to make people think that there's something spiritual about hating life. And while, and this certainly shows up in a lot of dystopian science fiction. And in fact, it shows up in mine. The idea that somehow that corporations thought humanity shouldn't be alive is a central theme to Watcher the Damned, that the corporations decided that humans shouldn't exist at the level they did. But there's always somebody, the guys who are paying for this, the guys, they usually are the ones that get to stay afterwards. You know, they wipe out everybody else, and then
yes. Rules for thee, but not for me.
That's right. And so there's and what happens when they mess it up? That's the story of Watch for the Dam. What happens when corporations foobar that process of getting rid of the extra humans so badly that humanity itself is struggling to survive now. And when we talk about those belief systems, and there are beautiful things, my family is very we love the environment. We've been very much an environmentalist family, and we don't like to use pesticides on our land. We don't like to do any clear cutting trees, things like that. We don't want to do those things. And so that portion of love of the earth and of embracing of that wholeness of that ecosystem actually is that there are so many beautiful elements of it. And it's easy to see why people fall into this false attitude that I must not survive in order to support the earth. When in reality, we are children of that system just as much as any other creature on this earth. I've talked to people who believe humans should exist, but they wouldn't kill all the bunnies in the world. They wouldn't go out and kill puppies. Why would you just kill humans for that purpose? Well, they're a plague upon the earth, but anything can get out of balance. It will get back in balance one way or the other. And when you're talking about it in those religious senses, we have so many world religions that talk about the balance of how life is hard and people die and things happen, but that people somehow always come back, or that the earth itself renews itself. There are so many religions that are out there, the world religions, where it talks about the earth healing itself in spite of the damage that is done to it, either by the cosmos itself or by mankind. And we see that element of love, of that universal life-giving nature itself. What makes us live, how we even manage to eat or feel the sun or anything else. There's a beauty about it. And I think that when we look at those world religions that embrace that, especially with Shinto and Taoism and others, that where you see that flow between humanity and nature, that it can be a very positive thing. And I think it's modern thinking that has taken it in this very negative turn, because the traditional religions of the earth had a beautiful aspect to it where it was trying to bring man and nature together. And there were some other ones that were actually really brutal too. There were a lot of them that did rely on human sacrifice, but there are many others that they actually were. There was a flow between nature and man that was not based on death and destruction, but instead was based on becoming one with nature and trying to reach it. And I think that element too is something that we haven't really explored as much in the last few years as writers, about people in touch with nature itself, with that flow of religion, of place, the elements that are elementals that are associated with the mountain or the ocean, even in Greek mythology, the dryads and naiads and those people and how they interacted with mankind. And I think that it can be so much more positive than what we've seen lately in our literature.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that often comes up a lot. Like, we have a lot of writers that really don't have a solid understanding of religion. A lot of them easily conflate religion with cult. And I think it's funny because we're kind of surrounded by it in a lot of ways. A lot of influential writers, their writings are very religious in nature. I think a big one is H.P. Lovecraft, who essentially was heavily inspired by Greek mythology, and he essentially added on to it because in his world the Greek gods are alive, they're the real ones and stuff, and he sort of created his own pantheon, a literal pantheon. It took much more of a nightmarish approach, and people they like these ideas about him, but they always take away more the darkness and less so that he established a cohesive religious organization that's at the center of his entire world, which is super interesting. But I think one thing that comes along with all this that's easily missed is really the social aspect and the political aspect, because we've been talking a lot about our own personal journeys, and a lot of it comes up with religion and stuff, or not just religion, but politics gets in the way, social politics gets in the way. And sometimes it would be, I don't want to say the opposite, but religion as a whole, I think, for writers is something that needs to be explored more, because when we don't, we're losing a lot of social engagement that actually occurs within our own societies. And if we're trying to create these synthetic societies, these imaginative societies, we want to bring them to life, we have to pull from what life offers, the good and the bad. And when we just say, oh, well, it's religion, it's in this corner, it's pseudo-Christianity, and it's evil, they actually do some very interesting things. Most of the time, the evil Christians, let's take a post-apocalypse setting, and you have evil Christians. Most of the time, the evil Christians have an army, a functioning economical system, a policing system, a stores. They have some measurement of safety for their people. They don't realize that they set up the bad guys to be grand and mighty, and what they essentially do time and time again is say, well, all government has fallen, therefore religion rises up and then not only becomes the government, but becomes a functional government. May it be evil or not, it's usually functional to the point where it's a threat, a major threat. And it gets me thinking, what if you actually explored that? You know, is the religion really the most evil thing about it? Or is it the individuals at the top taking control from the top down in more than just the political aspect? Because a large portion of politics is actually what people believe to a religious degree. But
That's
we
right.
rarely ever explore that. It's like, we only know how statehood works. Therefore, religion is this bad guy that's a form of its own political nature over here, but we don't dive deep into that. And that's why, like, some of my favorite writings, actually, one of which is the Three Musketeers. One of the bad guys is a cardinal. He's a religious figure, you know, and it's a very political figure, but you don't really see that in too much writings today. Even in some past writings, comic book form, I think V for Vendetta had religion in there as well. But that's one thing I personally explore a lot in some of my own writings that haven't even been released, because there's an entire nation that's religiously based.
We're going to count it.
It's going to take a while, because
I know.
Like you said, when you take it seriously and you're breaking this down, religion is such a heavy portion of society that it's easy to just cascade it to the side. But you can, I don't think you can truly write about a society without writing about those things that are influenced by religion to a large degree. And a lot of people try to, but you know, ultimately religion is a form of ideology. And you go ahead and try to write a character's arc with some form of ideology not appearing within it. It's impossible. And I think if we were to add in layers of religion, you're going to add in so much more political intrigue than you know, especially if you're talking possibly of, like in my world, everyone shares the exact same religion. None of them agree on it. Therefore, what kind of conflicts occur from that? An enormous amount of very interesting conflicts occur from that. And political intrigue, I believe, is some of the most interesting thrill rides you can pull from, because they can follow a character like this deep, dark specter. And if you have this will of what they must do and this will of what they believe religiously speaking, and where does that come together in the midst to create this conflict for various characters, where I believe in this religion. This is where my entire viewpoint of the world is. Now it's challenged by individuals. Now it's challenged by politics. Now it's challenged by my own experiences. We don't get those stories because our characters are always our characters are either getting over religion or they're too enlightened to be religious, even though that I truly believe that's almost an impossibility to embrace a form of religion or ideology in general.
Yeah, I've had like a really long chat with a couple of my older readers who who have already gotten over like the latest books, and they are constantly asking me questions about like the various religions that because some of them don't exist in Star Shattered,
Yeah.
and let's say how they interact, and just like you just mentioned, James, like the political aspects of it. Let's say, for example, take the Egypt, because quote unquote ancient Egypt still exists in Star Shattered,
Yeah.
and Persia. They have constantly been at like some form of war, maybe often not like an outright war, but like a cold war,
Oh,
and
wow.
political tensions constantly exists, and you have like the difference in the religions, because in the early days, Persia was like Zoroastrian,
Oh, yes.
but it was destroyed. It was uprooted by new sect, which kind of said like, no, this is like Zoroastrianism is the religion of weakness, and like the new Persia that we're building must be super strong, and like so that we could finally conquer Egypt. And they went too far, and actually embraced things involving uh, killing people who are not quote unquote needed, who are considered quote unquote weak, um, and who are maybe um, harboring anti religious like thoughts in their case, and they would like slowly they would transform the entirety of Persia into this nightmarish despotic uh, government, which is this new religion that controls every level of power, and it's like when you compare it to the Egyptians, who still have their quote unquote gods, but they're not actually, like, it's a bit different because they know that they have retained the old knowledge from before the fall of Atlantis, and they know that these, like, let's say, Horus is not a god. Horus is like an ascended precursor being, like, or like one of the other enlightened beings who helped other civilizations, and they gave them knowledge, and they gave them music, and they gave them arts, and they like it's quite different because they they also have their bad apples, just like all people are different, and you have like the good, the bad, and in the in between. It's you can't say outright that it's because of their religion that they are mostly good. No, it's the value systems that their religion has created, and the different people who adopt that value system, and then uplift their own civilization by way of following these values. So yeah, that's one of the many things, but let's say major things, religion, that makes our writing more an in-depth experience for the readers.
And I think James is right too when you're talking about that, how important it is in religion, how it shapes anybody, not just the characters in our book, but us ourselves. And there is a journey there, and I think James is right. We don't show the journey as much. A person's beliefs and the coalescing of where they are in their lives and the heartache and that bitterness that they have, or that suffering that they have, and the journey towards not necessarily even enlightenment, but understanding, just understanding. I'm here in this place.
Yeah.
Life can be all tough. I think that's sort of this reverse thing with Lovecraft. Lovecraft, his people are sort of blissfully ignorant. They don't realize the presence of the elder gods. They don't. They actually accidentally call them up. You say it wrong, and suddenly Cthulhu's here. Whoop whoop. It's going to be a hard day, and they become aware. They are enlightened in a very bad and different way. Suddenly they realize there are forces out there that they do not understand. And there is a journey there that actually takes place as they realize here is this thing, much like Luke's journey towards the Force. And whether it's an upward slope or it's a downward slope, when we realize there's these forces out there, these things, this spiritual energy that seems to feed our own culture and our own lives, and it's been there all along, we just didn't realize it. Seeing beyond the veil of the physical world to that spiritual world is part of the journey. And one of the things I've tried to do with Watcher of the Damned is I wanted my main character, to be on a spiritual journey. And I wanted him to go from that point of being in his own present world, where the only thing that mattered to him was as far as he could see. And he might be an intellectual. He was a very intellectual person, but he was very bound by the chains that bound him physically, with addiction and also physical chains. And then as he moves forward through the book, he has a spiritual awakening. He is still fully himself. He is still basically a sociopath, and he's very comfortable with killing people. And at the same time, he has a spiritual awakening because he is able to see beyond his present place into a place where he can envision something different for someone else. That there's something good out there. There's something worthy of loving, something worthy of being a part of. And it is part of that journey. And I think we miss it because we want to see things in very black and white terms. We don't want to think about people growing from one point to the next. Whether it's Lovecraft's guys that find out this incredible darkness, the eldritch gods coming out, and you suddenly realize there's power beyond your knowledge, and it makes you insane. Or you have somebody that's coming from a place of insanity and moving towards sanity and light, because they realize that maybe there really is beauty and life in the world. And it can go both ways. It's the journey that makes it incredible, and we really don't want to have that. I think we're making it too black and white, where they believe this thing because they were raised this way, and then they're going to not believe it anymore because something happened, and it just breaks them. But they don't have a journey towards something. There's just it is or it isn't. And I think that makes our
this is one of the most important things, as you say, the journey, the change. Yep.
Yeah, and I'd say that a lot of journeys are, like you said, black and white. They're just sort of the hero's journey, which is a fantastic thing. It's hard to even step away from that sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
But when you add in an element of belief into a character, that belief interacts with everything that character interacts with, which adds in even more layers to your own character. And like I said, multiple ways to kind of give more depth, and gives the writer multiple ways to kind of throw things in this character's face and ask, how's he going to accept it? Another great character from comic book literature, Daredevil. He's a captain. He doesn't kill anybody, because if he kills somebody, he sniffs out the last bit of light for them to change their lives around completely. And that's a big aspect of the character. Gets challenged a lot. They have this whole sequence where he loses his faith, then he regains his faith, and it's a magnificent play of character. And you don't even have to really even move a character from one location to the next at times to really dig deep into what everything that's happened before shape this character into now. And I guess this is actually another aspect too I didn't think of until like just a couple seconds ago, is also what's being challenged is also the ways of the past and the rituals of the past. Because for Daredevil to step up and start defending somebody, that had to come from from an idealistic place where he created this ritual of protection, putting on the mask, donning it, going out and doing these things. Rituals are also a very important aspect to a variety of religions. Even I think now I can think of at least 3 to 4 religions that use types of incense to burn to get sort of effects and things of that nature. And the interesting thing is, some of these religions actually agree to the particular effects and particular incense which are used in multifaceted rituals across different religions, which in itself is interesting. Exactly. But the difficult thing there that I get why writers don't approach this too much is you got to do a lot of research, because religion in itself is at the core of many cultures to a significant degree. Even before we would build institutions, we build temples to gods, and I think that's an aspect where people look at it and they just write it off as the ignorant, when really it's probably one of the least tapped portions of character developments lately, and it's probably going to be very refreshing when more people add it in there in one way or another to what will challenge the character.
As you said,
go ahead. I wanted to include it in Watch for the Damned. That I have a character that she's coming from a Hindu background, and there's a beauty to the ritual. There are things that her grandmother, she calls it her Ami, taught her. And at the same time, there was a portion of Hinduism that was taken and it was bastardized and turned into the state religion, where it took a piece from every great religion on the earth and then made it into this unholy golem that was designed to oppress humanity. And instead, they're picking out these pieces as they go, and her grandmother is able to talk to her about the beauty of what she learned as a child, and being able to make a dress from a simple sari, just a rectangular cloth, is a religious experience. How the folds are folded and how everything takes place, it represents a portion of spirituality. And then you have another character who actually is from his family is he's Tejano, so he has Mesoamerican ritual that still shows up in some of his own dealings, and he is considered to himself to be an intelligent man. He is educated. He is highly sought after in this new system because he knows so much about religion, but he still honors the ways of his ancestors. And when he's able to go back and give that to Rose, my main female character, she is able to learn about her own identity of her father as a man who is coming from the Tejano and Mexicano experience, and how that religion incorporated into his own life and ends up being part of the creation of Rose herself. And so I wanted that portion of this beauty of all these religions and how it could be used to hurt somebody. How you could take a little piece here and a little piece there from every good thing in the world, and you could turn it into something terrible to oppress people.
when you twist and abuse it,
and then how
and that's the power of religion. I don't want to interrupt you, but that's the power of religion. It's so great that it's actually above politics. Religion is above politics, because politicians, even within our own world, are so afraid to go against some religious leaders. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. And I think that was the whole point of it, was to be able to say that you can go back and you can find the divine. You can actually say, wait, this was bastardized, this was taken away from us, so this was changed. Find the divine. You will find it. When you look for God, you will see his face. And that happens when wherever you're looking, you will find that spirit of the divine. And we can find the good back in it. We can regain and we can reclaim what is rightfully ours. And when we give our characters the power to find the divine, to actually seek out the face of God themselves, beyond just their own powers, perhaps with incorporation of those rituals or those things that they have come to discover are sacred, it takes them down that journey towards wholeness. It's not just enlightenment of the mind or enlightenment of the spirit. It's becoming a whole human, because it is part of who we are as humanity.
Balance.
Yes, we will create a religion. If there's not one there, we would create it. Atheism is a religion. It actually is where you say, I have no God, therefore my God must be within my circle. I have to be the person who drives my own thoughts and my own powers. Everything has that religious element to it. If it is a organized system of belief, if you have a way of saying, I believe this thing and this is why I believe it, that becomes
Yeah, it's interesting how they. I mean, some of them who are not aware of that aspect of religion, and they keep saying, "Oh no, no, I don't believe in any god or gods, and I'm anti-religion, and I think that the all religious people are naive. They are just superstitious fools, blah blah blah." And then you have them like believe in abstract concepts like, "Oh, there is no good and bad, like everything is relative," and then you just like they magically clap their hands and yes, it's everything is relative, but me, I, because I deny the existence of all gods, I am the supreme. My intellect is supreme. My judgment is supreme, and what when I say something, it's right because I say it. That's
and I think that
ludicrous.
those who are aware in that sphere, I'm gonna have friends that are atheists. And the ones who do the best with atheism are the ones who embrace the fact that they're saying, I want to be the universe of me. I see this far. I can affect this much. I can see how I can affect the world around me. I want to be the one in control of my environment, in control of my universe. Ultimately, I have this much control. Ultimately, I can do these things. And then there are things that are forces that are beyond my control. But this is what I believe. They still have a belief system. In fact, those that are the most well-balanced of my atheist friends are those who have a belief system. They know what it is they believe. A person who has no idea of what they believe, they only believe that what's the next thing for them is the food they put in their mouth, has no boundaries. That is still a belief system. I exist only to satisfy myself is still a belief system. And when you make that your religion, it will have certain characteristics that will show up because you are existing to satisfy self. It is still a system of belief. And when we codify our beliefs, we create a religion. I think that people forget that, and you shouldn't say, "Oh, I don't believe in religion at all." You're believing something. Well, you believe, then you're anti. That's who you are. You believe this thing, and we can have our characters be a part of that as well. We can have characters that question everything. I was raised in a household that questioned everything, even while it had a belief system. Their job was to come in. I've told this before. My mother's job was to come in and to break down belief systems in order to challenge you to defend it. So she would come in and she said, "What if we're all in a book and God closes the book and stops reading? Will we cease to exist as characters?" And then she would just walk away. And I'm 8 years old. I don't even know how to think about this. It was really confusing. And so, but it forced me to think about it. I was like, well, why do I believe what I believe? How do I believe this? I was forced to become a defender of my own faith in order for me to challenge my parents and say, okay, this is why I believe this thing. This is why I think I'm still going to be here. And I had to learn about other religions to do it. And so that knowledge, there is a balance between being a devotee of a particular faith and a particular religion and knowing everything that there is to know about it, becoming that devotee, that devoted servant and that faithful person, knowing everything about it. And there's also a majesty in finding out something about everything else around you, about learning these things. And like I said, learning to see the divine somewhere, finding that spark in everything. And then knowing when if God is not in it, if there is no spark of the divine in it, then that is what we call evil. When there is no good in it, when there is no good or divine or holy thing, that's evil. And when we learn to recognize evil, now you have a system for telling your readers, this is the reason this person is a villain. Is he a villain because if you believe truly in the temple of self, and this is where we have a lot of our present day literature, and it has its place. If you believe the temple of self, that it is the whole and the entirety of everything that is in a person's universe, then a villain is someone who stops a person from doing what they want to do. So that becomes the villain. But we have to have a belief system of what is evil and what is good in order to create worlds that have villainy and heroes. And a world that exist without those can become very hopeless. It can become very depressive. And one of my greatest inspirations for something like that actually is Weird of the White Wolf, the Elric of Melbourne, because people kept on waiting for that payoff, and people do love the Elric series for a reason. It is beautifully written, it is wonderful, but it seems to be hopeless at the end. If you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. I encourage you to read it. It's a great series. But for a lot of people, it feels like this hopelessness. Why? Because it all seemed to be in vain. Why did it happen? Why did this take place? It's all on an even plane, and there's all there is just the hopeless end of emptiness and the spiritual slavery, more or less, that occurs for Elric as he succumbs to his sword. But I think sometimes people also miss the fact that he was always striving against it even then. He still got sucked into it. There is still a balance between that evil and that good. But if you don't see that in the story, it feels hopeless sometimes. And that's what we want those beliefs to be there. What do I believe as an author is evil and good? That's going to show up in my villains, and it's going to show up in my heroes.
Yeah, when you mentioned villains, I'm not sure if you. I think you read like one of the articles that I posted on Substack.
Yes.
The one about the different villains, and the latest, the last of the series about the villains that was about the villain's journey, and how they, like, when you work on a villain that has this specific cultural values and belief system, even if they are not like overly religious, or if they are, let's say, atheist. I think I managed to convey to my readers all of the belief systems and all of the different faiths of my villains throughout the book series, because I felt it even early on when I was still learning how to write. I'm still learning, of course, but early on I felt that it was really important for me to get there and get there in an organic way. And so the villain journey was something that I followed thoroughly, which it's a bit different. No, it's a lot different. And I will give you that like last example of the two main bad guys of the Star Shattered series, who are like competing bad guys, Lord Omasa and his second in command, Lord General Nedo, whom they started basically as Lord Omasa only took Nedo because he intended to use him as a fall guy, as a patsy. If something like went wrong with his operation, he would just say, "Well, it fucked up because like my second in command fucked up." It's like I'm not like I'm higher in the nobility ladder. Like, yeah, it's you understand, right?
Yeah.
And he would like even produce fake evidence that Nedo would like he was to blame for the failure. But they not only learn from each other, they learn from the heroes, and they learn from their experience in life while they are surviving in different battles. And they change, and their value systems and their beliefs also change. So it's kind of
exciting to me. That was very exciting because we're talking about, when we talk about religion, we're talking about it. In the end, almost every religion has good versus evil. Even in, when we look at those earth-based religions, the evil is in harming the earth. The evil is in challenging nature and destroying it. So there's always a good versus evil, and there's a journey into the descent into evil, and it happens in every great world religion. There is a story about why evil takes place, what is happening, how did it come to happen. And I think that as we explore that, whether it's in Christianity, where it's about power, where it's actually about the destruction of humanity over somebody trying to save humanity, that is the essence of it, love versus hate. Or you have the story of the Greek gods, where it was man against the gods, and you have this incredible setup with Prometheus and his story about working, even though he himself is a titan, he's a person that is of that divine pantheon. He's still against the gods. And this actually says of man against power, and how this is evil to go against power. And yet one of the greatest heroes of all humanity is a person who challenges the gods' power, who brings them fire and knowledge and sets them free. And you have this incredible, it's a very, I find Greek mythology so fascinating because it literally is, first of all, it's so elemental. It's coming from a very deep place in our past. It has elemental gods, and they rise to become spiritual and to become philosophical. And they are facets of nature and of the universe around us. Man striving against the gods becomes an analog for man striving against nature, for man working against it. And there are times when it truly is evil, when the dryads are upset because somebody comes and cuts down their tree, and there's no longer a life there that should be there. And there's other times when it's just the gods being capricious. They want power. They want somebody on the earth, or they have lusted after someone and they want these things. And almost always, as we see in those mythos, mankind still has a goodness about them. The greatest heroes of Greek mythology are man striving against his own pantheon, against the gods that would control everything, and it becomes this great nature story. And I think that when we don't look back at those ancient religions, when we don't include them in our writing, or we don't at least research it, we are missing out on such an opportunity to learn more, whether it's Norse mythology, Greek mythology, whether it's the ancient mythologies of the East, because there's some incredible stories that have become more like folklore, but there's still a pantheon of gods and goddesses that deserve to be explored. And we bring those things back to us. We can see why our characters become villains. We can actually see that arc of how do you become an evil person in my story.
Or vice versa.
Here it is.
Or vice versa.
Yes. Yeah, like it's super influential, and yet left out of many writings. Even now, and when you're talking about that, I was thinking of how various religions even commingle or coexist. Think about ancient Rome in itself had a period of time where they were, they prayed to the Roman pantheon, and then you had this new religion, Christianity, coming up within their ranks, and then you also had the variety of other groups that were forced to essentially conform to Romanism, and they would enter a location, they see like what kind of gods they would have, and they say, oh well, this one's kind of like Hermes. All right, he's just Hermes. That's what he is. He's Hermes. So you see how he unveiled to you as him, but he unveiled himself to us as this. So we're gonna go ahead and say that's Hermes, and see, we got so much in common, you and me. And that's basically what they do when they come and conquer a location. And when they come to a location that had a god that they didn't have, what they did was add their god into their pantheon.
Yes.
Like, all right, now he can enter, he can get on the wagon. Yep. You guys are with us, let's go. But when it came to these two other religions, these two monotheistic religions, you had Judaism and Christianity, both monotheistic. Only one of them was illegal, and that was Christianity. The reason was it was too weird. This is where the mixture of politics and religion actually intertwine, because the Romans were not like we expect religious people to be today. They were much more of a business centric sort of style. They pray because this is the God that their ancestor prayed to, and you're going to help me in battle because that's why we pray to the gods. So that way it's like a handshake. I give you worship, you give me power. Now I'm going to go do that. Thank you for your power. And then, they saw these things Christians doing was weird. One, they liked really old things, including religion. So when they had this group of Jews, very old group, and their very old God, they respected that. They did not. They're very, 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 very suspicious of new things. You have this new religion, and this religion says that not only is it monotheistic, there's only one God, meaning that you're already Xing out our entire pantheon over here. That's kind of weird. But also this God says, you're going to die for me. Okay, that's kind of weird. And also your followers are gyrating all over the place, jumping all over the place, crying, falling to their eyes. That's superstitious. That's what they considered it. If you do that stuff, you're superstitious. So to them, all this was just too much piled on top. So they outlawed this new crazy religion that's coming up out of nowhere. Because it's new, it's everything that gives them like the wide eye and says no thank you. And these are aspects of history that actually happen that we really don't bring into play within writings, even though that culturally speaking, that itself, like you can write a story about a nation rising, falling, or turning into 1,000 different ways. It's amazing. But earlier on the stream, I actually press this little button to turn off my camera. I had to go check on the door. And since I figured we're writers, I hate to derail a little bit, but I think you guys find this cool. 2 books. I'm a book collector, old school book collector. I like ordering old books. 2 of them came in. Pulp literature. This one is from the 80s, 88, I believe. This is The Fantastic Island, Doc Savage.
Oh my God, that's an awesome book. You'll love it.
Yeah, Fantastic Island from Doc Savage. Let me see if I can put myself full here and get this kind of on my chest. Come on, or on my face. There we go, so it doesn't blur. All right, so that's what I got. See if I can open this subtitle. You can see the internal pages. This is old, and it hasn't been open. I can tell you got that new fresh page vibe. This is one of them, and then. This is the second one, is actually old pulp literature. This is an old pulp magazine called Beyond Fantasy and Fiction from 1958, I believe. This one I gotta be careful opening it up.
Lord, man.
Some photos of there.
Yeah. It's really old.
Let me find a photo to show off. Everybody likes pictures. It is old. Here we go. Take a look at this old school artwork. Back in the day. I probably won't be able to read this one because it's so old, but it's part of my collection. I got these 2. I will be adding them in. Let's see.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to laminate this one like the old one with the because the pages
they got these little plastic bags.
That's good.
Add them to my collection.
By the way,
and these books, mind you, the actual shipping and handling is more expensive than the book itself.
Yeah,
because a lot of these books are not that expensive to get your hands on. They don't have the highest, there's not a lot of people out there trying to find them and stuff. And some people just got giant piles of old books that never sold. So sometimes you can get your hands on these relatively cheap. There's the back of the books.
That is just amazing. Well, also in that book, in the Doc Savage is a great book, and actually you have a lot of those themes of human sacrifice, cannibalism, things like that show up in those books, and actually explore some of those ancient themes and ancient religions and rituals. And then you'll find in that 1950s pulp, you will find several references to exotic religions and ancient ideals. Rituals seem to really fascinate a lot of the pulp writers, and we have those over and over again. They show up, especially in the horror elements. And if we know what we're doing with horror elements and ritual, especially religious ritual, it really does bring it to life. There is something about knowing that there's a force out there that you can't see and you can't touch, and it's coming against you. That brings those elements not only of heroism, but also of horror in it. And I think it's so cool that you got those books. And biggest thing is with the pulp ones that because they're actually pulp. It's pulp fiction because it's made on pulp paper. And it's just keeping it protected. If you wear rubber gloves, a lot of times, or plastic gloves, to handle it. It will keep those oils from breaking down the pages, and you can read them. You just want to take care of them, make sure you keep them out of the sunlight, things like that, and don't let your hands.
Yeah, the sunlight is a killer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like killer acid. The hands,
The
because
sweat.
we have,
Yeah, the sweat. Yeah.
it's acid that actually breaks it down. So taking care of those, because I think when you're reading those, you're going to see a lot of what we talked about today, how they looked at religion differently, how they saw it and incorporated it, the wonder of it. You talked about the ritual, the wonder of ritual, the incredible power of things that are beyond our sight and how they can be brought into our lives. That's what ritual does in religion, is it brings us in touch with the divine or in touch with this God. And one of the most interesting stories that comes out of this intersection of Christianity and Roman belief is actually the story of Perpetua, which is a contemporary story from Catholicism, but it is actually written by Perpetua and her jailer. Her jailer is a Roman guard. And he talks about the sacrifice of these people, and it has provenance. You can actually go back and see these original versions of the story that were as far back as we can get them, where it says this is a woman writing home about her persecution as a Christian in the Roman arena. And her guard is the one who brings the story home to her family after she is killed. And he talks about his conversion. He talks about his interaction with the Roman gods, about how he prayed every day and said, I have this contract. I come to you, just like you said, I come to you and I give you my sacrifice, and I don't understand why this isn't happening. And Perpetua talked to him about her love of Jesus Christ and how he had come in, and that there was no barrier between her and her own God. She didn't have to do anything except simply accept the gift. And he was fascinated because he felt like he had to give something to the gods in order for them to listen. And Perpetua was saying, all I had to do was love him and believe. And the Roman guard, his life is changed because of this interaction. And it's one of the few places where we can see the interaction of the daily Roman. He's not a high, mighty philosopher. He is not Herodotus.
He's just an ordinary guy.
Right, he's an ordinary guy, and he's trying to get by. And yes, he does believe in his religion, but he wonders why. Why am I doing all this every day? I come in and it doesn't seem like my life changes. And his life has changed dramatically. And it's one of the greatest stories you can read if you get a chance. It's the story of Perpetua. And it's an incredible story. And it actually talks about her death and the death of her friends and how she is waiting for this thing to take place. And the most remarkable thing is when the guard hands it back. This cycle is going to continue because her belief system was given birth and given over to this other person who has an arc of his own that takes him out of the ordinary Roman guard into the extraordinary realm of eternity. And that story in and of itself, I know it has been told probably over and over again, but it's such a remarkable story. And it is that power of religion, not only in the daily arena of coming in and doing your ritual, of having that moment alone with the divine and interacting with the divine. I want this thing from you, please help me to be a better person, or to sit down in front of an altar and to light the candle and to pray, or to have a moment where you are in touch with that spirituality that only you know that is inside your heart. And then to see it explode into this actual historic moment that is captured in a letter from a woman to her family as she is fixing to die. And I think that is that power of literature and religion to come together and to create these characters, whether it's a real story like a biography, or it is something that is fictional that comes from our own hearts. It is that power to embrace the physical human with something beyond ourselves. And however you choose to express that, to know that it is something we want to hear about as authors. Tell your story. Tell it the way you want to, and don't let somebody tell you you cannot speak of the religion, of the experience, of the spirituality in your heart. It will steal from all of us, and we need that experience. We long for it. And I think we can see that in our own readers, in our own people that respond to our stories, how they react to us is showing us that.
Yeah, definitely we can see it in our own readers, especially I. You probably know that I have never had any other social network pages except mine's,
Yeah.
and I followed it from its like the very beginning, um, where we had like just a few people on it, um, and the interactions that I had with my early readers and then the new ones. I mean, yeah, it's the feedback. Uh, it's probably the feedback is one of the big things that I actually love to write more and more and more, and indeed like some of the religious aspects in my series, they were probably like discussed the most.
James, have you had that interaction with your readers where they see, because you have a very religious world and your lore and the folklore and everything like that, it is such a huge element in your writing. Have you seen this interaction where your readers actually respond to this religious aspect with positively?
Not yet. That's mainly because I haven't explored it too much yet. Like it's actually is being explored, but it's subtly being introduced, little aspects here. Since it is a world, and this is actually one aspect of religion, uh, that's also kind of, I guess you could say it's like it's a major aspect. It creates culture, and that's the linguistics of it all. Religious people use particular linguistics. Certain words mean other things to other people because they look at it from a separate cultural point of view. One word that I think of right off the top of my head is the word apology, because to most of the world they got this term called non-apology, which essentially means like you didn't say sorry, you kind of just put forth a defense. But within the Christian world, there's such a thing called apologetics, where you pull from the original definition of the word apology, which means to actually present a defense of what you're talking about. So whenever I hear or see that, it actually intertwines with this cultural rewiring of what the word means and how it's often used. And then so people would say, oh, apology, non-apology, like what are you talking about? That is an apology. But that also presents itself. That presents itself a lot within my writings. Characters say particular words, which means particular thing. And then in the future, as I start to delve more into the religious nation, because that's the one I actually put less light on, they're the ones that's really going to bring forth and have much more of this. This is the world's religion, technically. And I say technically because they all have their own churches, they all have their own facilities, but then they all cannot come to an agreement on what it's supposed to mean. Well, one group has their own prophecies that are influenced from the subcultures of that area that say you will be the one to kind of lead the way, and another group says that nobody will really lead the way, we'll all work together, and another group that doesn't even really take it seriously but has more political ambitions, and no, this is a way that you speak between cultures, so they use it as a form of just political power, so to say. So I try to bring all that in and see how they eventually will mix match and communicate with one another and what kind of conflicts that'll come up. And that's very difficult to try to get right, because not only do you got to write it all, but then you actually got to heavily think about what are the ramifications, and if you want to do it,
consequences. Yeah,
you have to heavily think about the consequences. Kind of like I said earlier, most people end up making Christianity like the pseudo-Christian big evil religious group, but they also make them really good at building economies and armies and having a police force. Like there's a lot of subtext there that goes right over people's heads. You're making them the most ultimate power there is, and somehow because of like true moral atrocities, let's say, you're going to now try to remove the ultimate power and remove a current economy that's housing possibly thousands of millions of people because of these particular moralistic reasons. Like, there's a lot there that often comes up that's never really explored, at least not within a lot of writings that I've been coming in contact with. But we just hit the hour and a half mark, so we probably should be wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
Let me- I wanted to-
I just wanted to mention something that me and the man behind the screen were talking about the role of role play in gaming, and especially tabletop gaming in our writing. And as I know, you have your own system.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a possible theme for the next issue of our program.
Oh, no, that sounds great.
RPG system?
Yeah. Or gaming systems and RPGs. Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. Let me say this. I do want to say this at the end, because we all know that religion is a very touchy topic, and a lot of authors are told they should stay away from it, that you shouldn't talk about it, or you're only supposed to use the terms of bad. Yeah. But I had when I was first writing this, and I did have one person say, you've got too much religion in it. The greatest feedback I have gotten on my book, especially the first book, is a scene where Rose, my main female protagonist, is crying alone in the church bathroom. She is leaving behind a belief system that she is beginning to realize is a false belief system. And she's moving toward what she knows is true in her life, what she knows is real. And she is weeping because she is crying over a miscarriage, a loss of children. And she says how easy it is to believe when everything is beautiful and everything is wonderful, and you look up and the family's singing and everybody's holding hands. And it's so much harder when the blood is running down your leg and what you have prayed for will never come. And at the same time, she's hearing the music in the background, and the music starts, and she's hearing a song from the ancient church. And it fills her heart with love. And she only knows in that moment that sometimes love is enough. It's all that carries you through when the heartache and the peace come. I have received more great feedback from people that talked about how they themselves have been in that place where all of us have struggled with what we want to believe and what we know may not be true. And the only thing that we know in our hearts, the only thing that we know is real, is what we fall back on. Do not be afraid as authors to explore this. This has so enriched my own writing, to not be afraid to say not only what I believe, but what my characters believe, why they believe. Don't be afraid to go there. The world needs to hear what you have to say about this. They need to know what you have experienced, and your characters will bring that to life for your readers.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That tell the so-called sensitivity readers to sod off. Just tell them to sod off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anybody got any last comments before we head out?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean,
all right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. It was real fun. I thought this was a really great conversation. In TTRPG next, that could be very interesting to explore. Yeah. I know that's definitely a very great practice for getting the imaginative juices flowing. So we're gonna have a very fun conversation with that coming up. But,
we can even have like a guest. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, possibly, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah.
Did you? Right. We'll see. We'll talk about it on the back end, everybody. Join us next week. Talk about TTRPGs and how that affects literature, inspires literature, and how we actually see it in literature, because we do have a complete RPG genre. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be headed out now. Bye-bye.
Bye.